والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين لا سيما مولانا وسيدي صاحب العصر والزمان روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء وأجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف ولعنة دائمة على أعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. ما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. For the hastening of the return of our 12th Imam, Imam Al-Hujjah, one salawat upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. First off, it's good to be back home again after being away for a few months and to see so many familiar faces again. I know it's already quite late, 10:20, and people have work to go to tomorrow, so I'm not going to be very long tonight. I'm going to try to watch my words and keep it very short. And if I go overboard, somebody just give me like an indication or something so I don't get caught up talking too much tonight. We are here together to celebrate the birth of our fifth Imam, Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And obviously any time that we gather to celebrate these occasions, it's always a great opportunity. Because at one level when we gather together as we have tonight, we are reaffirming our commitment and our loyalty to the Prophet and to Islam and to the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Obviously these events are important in our community for us to be able to gain knowledge about the Ahlul Bayt. Because that's really what they were sent for, is for us to gain inspiration from their life. And so every opportunity that we get, we should avail ourselves of that to learn more about the religion of Islam through the preservers of the teachings of the Prophet, which are namely the family of the Prophet, which are the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. This evening I want to look at the topic of watch your words. And obviously I want to base this upon a hadith that we have from the fifth Imam. But before I go to the hadith, I just want to speak a few minutes about the month of Rajab that we're in. You know, Rajab is interesting in the Islamic texts. When you study issues of spirituality within the Islamic system, within the worldview of the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, you see that Rajab plays a very prominent role in trying to gain proximity to Allah. Not physical, obviously, proximity, because Allah is everywhere, as He says in the Quran, Huwa ma'akum ayna ma kuntum. He is with you wherever you are. But we realize that there are times that we sometimes drift away from Allah. We get busy with work, we get busy with school, we get busy with just the day-to-day activities, and we sometimes unintentionally forget to put that emphasis on Allah. But one of the beauties of Islam is that we see that we're never too late, that it's never that Allah is so far away that we don't have the ability to reconnect to Allah. And so although through the year we're very busy with a lot of activities, Allah gives us certain opportunities in the life, in the year, to reconnect to Allah, right? It's just like our own lives. We have our smartphones and we're always using them. The screen is always on. We're always checking our messages. And our batteries will eventually run out. And we look for another source to plug it in. And even that 1 hour, half an hour charge, especially if you have a phone which has quick charge, then you can charge up in a half an hour and you're good for another 4 or 5 hours. I look at Rajab and Sha'ban and Ramadan like that. They're short times, 90 days, right? 3 months. But if you're able to maximize the potential of those 3 months, that can carry you on for the rest of the year. Rajab is also interesting because even pre-Islamic Arabs, the Jahili Arabs, those who did not venerate, who didn't recognize religion per se, they didn't recognize Ibrahim and Isa and all those previous prophets, but they respected the month of Rajab. Rajab, as you know, is one of the 4 sacred months in Islam. In the Islamic ideology, in our ahkam, in our jurisprudence, we have a concept of the Ashhurul Hurum, which are the 4 sacred months. These are months within the Islamic calendar which are sacred, they are holy. Fighting is haram, is forbidden in that month, in those 4 months. Even the Jahli Arabs, those who did not accept Islam, they accepted Rajab to be a special time, that they would literally put down their weapons in the month of Rajab, even if they're fighting a fierce battle, a fierce campaign against their enemies. They would put the weapons down and take that month off to focus on spiritual issues. They said we wouldn't fight in the month of Rajab. And so Rajab has its own sacredness pre-Islam. The Messenger of Allah comes on the scene. He accepts this tradition of Rajab being sacred. Allah talks about it in the Quran in a verse. And so Rajab became a very special month. Now obviously with the coming of Islam and the message of the Prophet, the Rajab takes on its own unique significance. And Rajab basically begins an opportunity for us to again reconnect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rajab is the month we're in. 30 days pass, we'll get into the month of Sha'ban, which also is a very important time. And eventually all of this will culminate with the month of Ramadan. Ramadan is the actual goal that we're trying to get to. But we use Rajab and Sha'ban as a ladder, as a way to get to the month of Ramadan. And so today we had the 12 rakat of mustahab prayers. We have mustahab fasting in the month of Rajab. We have special du'as we recite every night. For example, there's a dua that we all, I'm sure, know, which begins, Ya man arjuhu likulli khair. A very short dua, but we recite it every day. Right? These are all ways to prepare and train ourselves to go into the month of Ramadan, when today fasting is recommended. In 60 days it'll be an obligation. Right now all these du'as are good to do. But Ramadan comes and we get into more of a habit to recite them. Today we're feeling a bit more spiritual. But come the month of Ramadan, come the new moon of Ramadan, and we see that our entire persona will change because of that blessed month. In the hadith, Rajab is known by 2 unique names. I'm just going to touch upon this very briefly before I go to my main theme for tonight. Rajab is called in the hadith, in the du'as, Rajab al-Asab. And this is an interesting word. Allah uses it in the Quran in multiple instances. For example, in Surah number 80, Surah Abasa, verse 25, Allah talks about the fact that Allah has brought down multitude of rain from the skies. And He says, وَأَنَّا سَبَبْنَا مَاءً سَبًّا. That I, Allah said, we have revealed, or we have sent down to you rain in copious amounts. So when Allah says that Rajab is Rajab al-Asab, what it means is that Allah's mercy is overflowing in the month of Rajab. There is a torrent of blessings of Allah. There is a flood of rahmat of Allah in the month of Rajab. There's a long hadith, I don't want to go into it tonight, but there's a hadith from the Prophet where he talks about the rewards given to somebody who fasts in the month of Rajab. And he says, if you fast 1 day, what is the reward? You fast 2 days, what is the reward? All the way to 30. And you can look at the hadith and you see the beauty of the month of Rajab. That so much mercy is encompassed in the month of Rajab. So much forgiveness of Allah is there. So much of Allah's pardon of all of our transgressions is contained in the month of Rajab. So it is a month of a torrential downpour of the mercy of Allah, of the forgiveness of Allah. But the same Prophet also called it Rajab al-Asam. And Asam means the deaf. You know, somebody who can't hear, you're deaf. He calls it the deaf month. One of the reasons, and there are multiple explanations why, but one of the rationale from the hadith is because of what I just mentioned previously, that at the time of the pre-Islamic Arabs, they would not fight. They would lay down their weapons. They would not engage in warfare. So there was no sound of the clashing of, shield and sword. And so this should be an indication also to us. I mean, we're not fighting physical wars today, but sometimes we let our emotions get the best of us. We begin to, use vulgar language. We begin to argue with people. And sometimes maybe argumentation is necessary to argue with people. But in the month of Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan, where we are working to better ourselves, to better our own character, we should put down the proverbial weapons that we carry. The arguments, the bickering, the fighting that we sometimes have. Maybe within a family. Maybe husband and wife are arguing or quarreling. This is a perfect month to put down that hatred and let Allah's mercy come into the family. Maybe brothers don't talk to one another. Maybe sisters are at odds with one another. Rajab becomes a month where you can put those petty differences aside. And maybe they're not petty, maybe they're big differences, whatever they are. Put them aside at least for Rajab. And let the mercy of Allah, let the forgiveness of Allah come into our heart. And then we can see what kind of a change we can bring about within our family structure. So Rajab is important for that it gives us the introduction to Sha'ban and then the culmination of the month of Ramadan. There is a lengthy tradition, I'm not going to go into it tonight, but I just give you one or two portions of the hadith. It comes to us from the sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. And in the hadith, I'll just paraphrase it because it's very lengthy. And I may have talked about it last year, but you can go up online and look at the hadith. But the hadith is about the Rajabiyun. The Rajabiyun are those who are the people of the month of Rajab. Those who respect the month of Rajab. Those who understand and uphold the sanctity of the month. And the hadith begins that the sixth Imam was approached by a companion. And the sixth Imam began to explain the importance of the month of Rajab. And the sixth Imam says that on the day of judgment, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, a sound will come from beneath the Empyrean, beneath the throne of Allah. A voice will emanate, and the voice will say, Aina Rajabiyun? Where are the people of Rajab? Where are the people who respected the month of Rajab? Where are the people who gave Rajab its importance? Then the hadith goes on to mention that on the day of judgment, the multitudes of humanity will be in that gathering. And the hadith from the sixth Imam says a group of people will stand up and their faces will be beaming with light. And on their heads will be crowns of a massive kingdom. And there will be emeralds and pearls in their crown. And at this point we're told in the hadith from the sixth Imam that the angels will say, congratulations, that you people were the ones who were the people of Rajab. And the angels give us the glad tidings, give those people the glad tidings. They welcome them into paradise. But before that happens, so a sound has been heard. People have stepped forward with crowns on their heads. They're called the people of Rajab. They step forward. The hadith says that when they look to the right, there'll be 1,000 angels on their right. When they look to the left, there'll be 1,000 angels on their left. All of this happens, and then Allah Himself begins to speak. Allah addresses this massive congregation of all of humanity, of all of the angels, all of the jinn. And Allah begins to tell those who are the people of Rajab that you get all of this. You get this status of being the people of Rajab. You have crowns of glorious kingdom on your head. You have angels surrounding you. You have a light on your face. You're going towards Jannah. You'll be there forever, for perpetuity. There'll be no exiting from paradise. And the description continues. I'll bring you to the end of the hadith, that the sixth Imam was then asked by the companion, how do I get this status? How do I become a person of Rajab? And the Imam gave us one very simple message, one very simple task. He says, even if you fast one day in the month of Rajab, from the beginning, from the middle, or the end, this will be your reward. Just fast one day of the month of Rajab. It could be, for example, the first. It could have been today if you fasted on Laylatul Rajab. It could be the 13th of Rajab when we'll gather to celebrate the birth of Imam Ali alayhi salam. It could be the 27th when we gather for Ba'that, the appointment of the Prophet. Or it could be the last 3 days, which are highly advised to also fast. The moral of the story of the hadith is that to fast one day of the month of Rajab, and obviously fasting is not just the act of not eating and drinking, It's to protect our eyes, protect our ears, not speak, not look at bad things, not to do things which are against the ethos of the month of Rajab. Then we are promised this from the sixth Imam, that this would be our status. That when that call comes from beneath the throne of Allah, that where are the people of Rajab, that we will have the ability to take a step forward, and that we will be given all of the bounties that are promised to us by our Creator, Allah Azza wa Jal. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So inshallah, we hopefully all have the ability to fast. Again, even if we can fast one day out of this month, with that intention that we want to be of the people of Rajab, Allah will make it easy for us, and that we will be worthy of being entered into paradise and receiving all of those benefits and bounties that are promised within this tradition that I've mentioned, and within the countless other traditions from the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tonight, as we've gathered to mark the birth of the fifth Imam, I just want to go to the hadith. I don't want to spend much time talking about the Imam. We've spoke about him in the past. We've read his history, I'm sure. We know a lot about the fifth Imam in terms of his biography, his parents. As we know, he was in Karbala when the tragedy of Karbala happened, being born in the year 57 after the migration. He was 4 years old when the tragedy of Karbala unfolded, and he was there to see Sayyid al-Shuhada be killed on the day of Ashura. A young boy, only 4 years old. But nonetheless, he was there to witness that. And obviously that formed a large part of the tradition of Ali Muhammad in terms of even keeping alive the memory of Ashura. One of the things we also appreciate about the life of the fifth Imam, although we are called Ja'fari Shias, although we're called the Ja'fari, that we are followers of the jurisprudence and the theology which was based on the sixth Imam, but we realize that when you look at history, that there was actually a combination of the fifth and the sixth Imam working in parallel. Meaning that the fifth Imam began the intellectual revolution because of the political climate of his time. He began the movement of education, of teaching, and after his demise, his son, the sixth Imam, took that message a step further and codified and formulated much of the teachings that we have today. Much of even the rules of usul al-fiqh, the principles that our scholars use to determine our day-to-day rulings, come from traditions of the fifth Imam. But today I want to look at a topic in relation to our day-to-day life, in relation to perhaps things that we go through on a frequent basis. And it affects not only us, it affects the entire world actually. You know, we live in an age, and I don't even have to say this, I mean, we live in this era where we have all of this technology that we all probably use in one form or another. Right? We have many times information overload. We have information coming to us from all angles. We have our social media, we have our news feeds, we have all of this information being, thrown at us on a 24-hour basis. Constant bombardment of facts, of figures, of information, of news coming from all aspects. And sometimes this blessing that we have of technology, it becomes a bane, it becomes a curse really. It becomes a fitna in the sense of a tribulation. Because yes, we can communicate at the speed of light with the world around us. We can even email our marja taqleed and get answers in a short time. We can communicate with people around the world. But we realize that with the spread of technology, the good that's there, there's also a lot of bad that comes along with it. Right? There's a lot of positive spin-offs of technology, of all the usage of it. But at the same time, there's also a lot of negative from it. And this is what I want to look at very briefly tonight, is what does it mean to watch your words? When we live in an era in which presidents of the country can tweet things which have no basis in reality, where people can get on social media and post anything they want, right? This is unheard of. I mean, even if you ask people 20 years ago, before the advent of the internet, 25 years ago, when there was only television and newsprint, and that was where we got all of our information from. Today, it's a much different landscape where anybody with a camera can open up a news, their own little news station. Anybody who is anybody can pretend to be somebody that they're not and push an agenda and change the facts to make untruths look like the reality and change the reality to be a fiction. And one of the challenges that we see in the world today is even this term that I'm sure many of you have heard from one of our friends south of the border, where that individual would lie. He would openly lie as a head of state, and then when his spokesman would come on the air, they would say, well, these are alternative facts. Right? This is the kind of world that we live in today, where words are twisted and a fact or a statement which is completely baseless, which has no reality to it, can be spun off as an alternative fact. You have a truth, and then you have what they call alternative facts, right? Which basically means it's a lie, but it's my way of lying. I don't want to call it a lie. And so I want to look very briefly at this concept of words and what the speech and how we talk and what impact it has. And again, based upon a hadith that I want to share with us from our fifth Imam, Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam. The tongue that we have to speak with, and not just the tongue, but the proverbial tongue, the ability for you and I to communicate. What I'm doing right now, what we see happening on a day-to-day basis, this is actually a creation by Allah that Allah gave us. Right? In Surah Rahman, chapter 55, Allah clearly says it, where He says, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, Khalaq al-Insan, Allamahu al-Bayan. Right? Allah says it is Allah who taught human beings the mode of speech, how to communicate. As Muslims, we don't believe that we were cavemen and we were scribbling on a wall, some kind of hieroglyphics or just symbols, and then we evolved into people who can speak and articulate ourselves. No, we believe that Allah taught us the mode of speech. Right? Some scholars even believe that Arabic as a language is actually revealed by Allah. Right? That Allah taught Arabic as a medium for the final messenger. Other languages, yes, we can create English, we can create French. People have created languages, and today hundreds of languages go extinct every day in the world. Languages are built, languages are created. But ultimately, this creation or this ability for you and I to speak is given to us by Allah. Right? And again, not just speaking, but texting. All of these modes of communication are given to us. But when things are given, we have to realize that we have a responsibility. How do we use that blessing that Allah has given us? Allah has given me the power to speak. Does that mean I go out and use vulgarities and curse at people? Do I lie about things? Do I mislead the public? Do I mislead the consumers? Do I mislead people? Do I cheat? Do I steal? What do I use these words for? When the scholars of akhlaq, let me bring it to a religious perspective. When the scholars of spirituality talk about the tongue, speaking, articulation, they tell us that there are over 70 sins that the tongue can perform. 70. Right? Hands, very few. Maybe there's 10 or 15 sins of the hand you can do. The feet, you can't really do much with the feet. You can kick somebody. Maybe you can, hurt somebody by kicking. Maybe a few sins. But the tongue, and hearing, you hear a few things. But they say that the tongue has over 70 different sins it can perform. And these are just some of the examples. Lying is a sin. Sometimes they say, well, it's just a little white lie. It's not hurting anybody, right? What harm is it? I bought something from the store. I'll go and return it. I'll tell them, I'll make up a lie why I'm returning this product. It's not hurting anybody. Well, it's not hurting anybody, but it's a lie at the end of the day. We have to fess up to it. When we lie, and this is the beauty of you and I as humans, when we lie or we do any sin, we're almost trained by ourselves to try and justify our sins. Right? Allah says in the Quran, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرًا. That you and I as human beings, we know when we're doing something wrong. Even though you and I try to put up a false excuse, we know it's wrong. Right? So when I do that and I lie to somebody, I know it's wrong, but I'll justify it. Say, well, that company, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. If I return this one product for $50, it's not a big deal if I lie about it. They're billionaires. They'll package it up and resell it on the shelf. But it's a lie at the end of the day. And these are just some of the examples our scholars give of the sins of the tongue, of actions that we do that have repercussions. Because keep in mind, as I move on, that anything which is a sin has an effect on the soul. It will impact me. I might not feel it today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not 5 years down the line. But constant sinning will develop a rust on the heart, a spiritual rust on the spiritual heart. And as the hadith tell us, that a point comes where the heart is completely covered. As Allah says in the Quran multiple times, that their heart is covered over because of their acts of iniquity, because of the sins. So every little sin, that I call it a little sin, it adds a little black mark. And that small pollution on the heart, that little negative stain, it continues to develop and fester on the heart until it gets to a point where, as the hadith says, that the heart is now so corrupt and polluted that you can't clean it. Right? The spiritual heart is now diseased to a point where there is no way to rectify the heart, to rectify the soul. So with that said, let me share with us the hadith of our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says in the hadith, he says, indeed this tongue is the key to all goodness and all wickedness. And so therefore it befits the believer that they put a seal, that they safeguard their tongue, just as they would put a seal or safeguard their gold and their silver. When we have all that money that we make, when we're making that 6-figure income, we don't just leave it laying around the house. We don't just, walk around with money falling out of our pockets. No, we want to protect it. So we go to the crooked bank system that we have here in Canada that rips us off, as they are showing in the media today. And we deposit our money with the banking system, which takes our money and does what they want with it and charges us all these exorbitant fees and gives us 0.25% back as a return. But we give them our money. We trust them with all of our hard-earned money because we can't put it under our mattress or under our pillow. And so we trust it to the bank. And the fifth Imam says that if you're going to safeguard your money, why don't you safeguard your mouth? Right? A much better, much more important asset. As he says, the tongue is the key to all goodness and wickedness. And we should protect it. And if you look at the creation of the human being, just think about our mouth for a second. We have the tongue. We have a tongue, but then we have teeth in front of the tongue. And then we have the lips in front of the teeth. So there are multiple levels that Allah is showing us that before you speak, keep your mouth shut. Don't say everything that comes to your mouth, to your mind rather. There are some people, I think Plato used to say, there are wise people who when they have something important to say, they speak. But a fool will speak because he'll speak because he just wants to say something. Right? So sometimes people they're motor mouths. They have to keep talking. They have to keep talking. You can't shut them up. But there are wise people, as the hadith tell us, where they only speak when there's something important to say. Because they realize the gravity of the words. Right? They're not going to just speak frivolous talk. They're not going to just tweet, preposterous things. They won't go on social media and go on Instagram or Snapchat and put a picture on just to get likes and comments and thumbs up. Right? There are people who think before they do these actions. And the fifth Imam shows us that everything, the goodness and badness, it comes from that tongue. And I'm sure we've seen this in our day-to-day life. Right? People can kill you with their words. Right? People can utter things at you, and you can lose your character in a society. And we've seen this happen. Respectable people in a society, And people accuse them of doing things which are not allowed. People accuse them of things which are allowed but are not haram. And they lose their status. Why? Because people talk too much. People go on social media too much and they say, it's my right to say this. It's my right to post all of these things. And we realize that no, you don't have a right to say what you want, to do what you want, just because you live in a free country. There are limits of freedom of speech. And as Muslims, we should appreciate that there are even greater limits of the freedom of speech. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so this tongue can become the best or the worst of organs. There's a story that happened at the time of Luqman. Luqman, as I've talked about in the past, he was a wise man. We're told in the hadith he was given the option. Either you become a prophet or you become a wise man. And Allah gave him this opportunity to decide between the two. He said, I'll become a wise man. I don't want the station of prophethood. And so there's a whole, the surah of the Quran, chapter 31. We looked at this surah last year, the month of Ramadan. But one time Luqman, who was originally a slave and then he became a free man, his master comes to him and he says, go and slaughter me a goat or a sheep and bring me the two of the best organs, the two best organs of that animal, the two best parts of that sheep. They say he went, he slaughters the sheep, he comes back with the heart and the tongue. So his master says, okay. A few days pass, he goes, go and slaughter me another animal, another goat, and bring me back the two worst organs of that animal. He goes and slaughters the animal, he brings back the heart and the tongue again. So his master's like, what's up with this guy? I tell him to bring the best part, he brings the heart and the tongue. I tell him to bring the worst, he brings the heart and the tongue again. What's he trying to do? He asked Luqman, and this is how we're told in one hadith how he gained his freedom. He was a slave, he gained his freedom. He says the heart and the tongue, if they're used for the right purposes, they are the best of organs. When you speak good words, that's the best thing that we can do. But he says that same heart and same tongue, when it's used for profanity, when it's used for gossiping and bickering and argumentation and backbiting, that becomes the worst of the organs. So he was showing us a lesson that the heart and the tongue more specifically is what makes a person a person. It's what really gives a human being their character. I'm going to speed it up to get to the end in the next few minutes, but these are 11 things in the Quran. When Allah talks about speaking in the Quran, how to speak, right? Allah gives us these 11 definitions of types of speech. I'm not going to go over them one by one, so don't worry about that. But just look at them for a brief second or two. You'll notice a pattern hopefully emerging when you study and reflect on these 11. Eloquent, truthful, good, gracious, decent, straight up, gentle, truthful. And it's interesting because these are all things Allah is telling us how to communicate to people. Right? Communication is so important in today's day and age. Allah is showing us that there's no room in Islam for vulgarity. Right? Even when Allah talks to the Muslims and tells you and I how to talk to people who worship idols, He tells us don't even make fun and curse the people who worship idols, because they will turn around and curse Allah. So if we cannot make fun of idol worshippers who worship a statue, Allah says talk nice to them, how should we be interacting with one another in a community? Right? Again, whether on social media or in the center or at home or in the mall or in the park. If we can't make fun of idol worshippers, we don't tell the non-believers, we don't insult them, then how should we be with one another? Right? We should even be better with one another. If we're supposed to respect the non-believer, we should be much better, 10 times, 1,000,000 times better with one another. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Just one verse of the Quran I'll share with us, where Allah talks about one mode of speech. And again, we could go through hours of discussion on ways of speaking. You don't have to go to Toastmasters and all of these clubs to learn how to speak. these ayat of the Quran present a blueprint of how to be a public speaker, how to use motivational words, how to talk to people, how to be respectful to individuals. This one verse of chapter 17, Surah Bani Israel, verse 53, Allah tells the Prophet, "Say to my servants that they should speak only what is gracious, ahsan, what is the best." Then Allah says, "Indeed, Satan is keen to provoke discord amongst people. And indeed, Satan is an open enemy to the people, trying to disunite one another." Allah shows us that even when you speak to non-Muslims, non-believers, it doesn't matter what persuasion they are. Speak ahsan, be gracious, be respectful in your words. Use that, use language that is not only the content of it is respectful, the mode of delivery, because it's also important how we deliver a message. You can have people up here yelling and screaming and shouting, or you can have somebody who is calm, collected, gives the same message. But the method of delivery will change. If you hear somebody yelling and shouting and screaming, you'll run away from them. But if they're cool and calm, they're massaging the words as they come out, you're going to sit and listen to that person. You'll want to listen to it. Even if it's not truth, you'll still sit and listen to that person. So the content has to be proper. The method of delivery has to be proper. It has to be in a beautiful way. Not just you throw the words out and let them fall where they may. No. The Quran shows us that there is a way to speak to people. And we know that even the Prophet, when he spoke, he had a lot of etiquette. I won't go into that tonight, but he was very careful with how he spoke, what he spoke. We're told in the hadith that the Prophet speak to people at their level of intellect. So if a philosopher came to a Prophet, he would speak at their level. When a young child comes to the Prophet, he won't speak as a philosopher, as a theologian. He'll bring himself down to the level of the child. Make a joke with the kid. Play around with him. Talk in a different way. So these are all modes of speech that we see in the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt that we also need to imbibe within ourselves. And so just two things that we understand is that from Allah come gracious words, words of peace and respect. When we speak to the Christians, Quran says, invite them to the message. When Allah talked to Pharaoh, or to Musa rather, Prophet Moses, he says to Musa, go to Pharaoh and speak to him a gentle word. وَقُلْ لَهُمْ قَوْلٌ لَيِّنٌ. Speak to him with nice words. Satan brings about vulgarity, profanity, disrespect. These are ways of the devil, and that's why many times when youth ask about music, I say that yes, certain forms of music are allowed, certain forms of music are allowed, but the majority of music out there is a problem because it's full of profanity. It's full of denigration of one gender or the other. It's about discrimination. It's about bad things. Much of the music. And trust me, I know. Don't ask me how I know, but I know it's bad. So Satan wants to instigate us, right? Satan wants us to talk about other people, because when I talk about somebody else, then I can deflect attention from myself. Oh, did you hear what that guy did? Did you see that girl yesterday at the mall, what she was doing? Right? We start to talk about one another, but we forget about ourselves. And then we begin bickering amongst one another. And the devil loves that. He loves to instigate you and I against one another. And so we have to realize that, and I'll end with this, is that we as human beings need to be like a thermometer and a thermostat. Now I know we all have digital thermostats at home and thermometers. This is outdated. We have Nest and we have all of these new, super connected gadgets at home. But think about these two examples of the thermometer and the thermostat, what they do, right? The thermometer, it will read the temperature. You can't control the temperature in this room right now with only a thermometer. It'll just tell you the temperatures that say 28 degrees or 18 degrees. The thermostat will come in, you'll change it, you'll turn the heater on, you'll turn the AC on, and you'll control the temperature in the room. We as human beings, our tongue has to be like this. Meaning that when we speak, when we're angry inside, when we're angry inside, or we have jealousy, or we have, any of these sins, that will be represented on our tongue, how we speak. When I'm fighting with somebody, when I'm arguing with somebody, I'm going to be yelling and screaming and using bad words. And so my temperature will increase. My thermometer will increase the temperature. Well, we have to realize that we have to cool it down a bit. Right? Use our thermometer as the gauge and cool ourselves down. Use the internal thermostat of spirituality, of recognizing who we are and who the other person is. Realize that Allah is ever witness. Realize that we're followers of 14 personalities who taught us that even if somebody is in your face about to kill you, that there's still time to negotiate. As we see in Karbala, as we see with even Lady Zainab alayha salam, as we see with all of the Ahlul Bayt. And again, I'll cut this short because the time is up, but we have to keep this in mind that we need to regulate ourselves, use our teachings to control what we say, how we say. Again, not only in person, but more importantly today, online, in social media. Control what you say. Don't just say anything because you have to say it, because you want to say it. Think about what you're going to say. And when I say think about what you're going to say, follow this 5 rules. Think, is it true? What you're saying, is it true? Or, oh, somebody sent me an email, I'm going to just forward it to everybody on my WhatsApp list because it sounds interesting, right? We all get these WhatsApps. I don't even want to start with that, but we know that we see this. Well, I'm just going to forward it to everybody. Is it true? I don't know. But somebody sent it to me, so it must be true. No, think about it. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is what you're doing, what you're spreading, what you're saying, is it going to help somebody? If not, don't forward it. Don't speak it. You don't have to just be talking all the time, right? Close it sometimes. Think a bit. Is it inspiring? Will it help somebody achieve some great thing in life? If it's not, don't do it. Is it necessary? Do you really have to always speak? Do you really always have to be the center of attention? Do you thrive on getting more likes on your Facebook post or your YouTube video? You want 1 million subscribers and you want 500,000 thumb ups because you have a great video online? No, if it's good, people will like it. Don't have to go and look for people to recognize you. And last but not least, is it kind? Right? Is what you're saying kind? And it can be criticism, it can be constructive criticism, but it's to help the other person. It's to foster that person to become a better believer. And so I'll end with this, that if we use this 5 key principle, then we'll be able to live according to the hadith of the 5th Imam, where he says that the key to all goodness and evilness is in this tongue. And just as you and I protect our wealth, let's also protect what we say and how we say it. I close and we ask Allah as we end that He accepts this act of worship from us tonight, especially the amal that we have done between Maghrib and Isha. We ask Allah to forgive us of our sins and keep us all on the path of Muhammad and Ala Muhammad. And we ask Allah to hasten in the return of our 12th Imam, Imam Al-Hujjah, and that we can be worthy of being amongst those who would be helpers and assistants of our 12th Imam when he returns to bring about rectification of the human society and of the human condition. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Let us close by remembering the deceased from our family, our friends, the ulama who have left this world, the shuhada who have given their lives for the sake of the religion of Islam, with a surah Mubarakatul Fatiha. But before that, one loud salawat upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala.